Hello and welcome to DFS Coach Talk. Today is Friday, July 31st, and we at DFS Coach Talk have some big news to celebrate from yesterday. Our own pro here, Mr. Shane Caldwell, also known as Detroit Sports Shane, was one of the guys that tied for the Milly Maker on FanDuel. So
Yeah.
shout out to Sugar Shane Caldwell. Phenomenal. How about that, Andrew? And by the way, this is Mr. Andrew Hansen, my partner in crime, and I am Joe Sarvati, affectionately known as Coach. I just couldn't wait to get that out there because when you see a first out of 570,831, albeit some decent amount of ties, very impressive.
Yeah, absolutely. Shout out to Shane. He deserves to be mentioned first. We have to take the back seat today. Tie for first in the Milly Maker. Great start to the restart for us at DFS Coach Talk. So yeah, I'm pumped. That's exactly what we're hoping for. Unfortunately, a lot of other folks tied with him, but hey, you can't control that. You just got to put your best lineup out there, and he did it with only 11 lineups in
Amazing.
the 150 max. So
Yeah.
terrific work, Shane. I'm pumped for you. And looking forward to getting back after it tonight with another big slate with a lot of big prizes again.
I am too, man. Yeah, $44 investment almost brings him back $4,000, and the just exclusive aspect of saying he finished tied for first in a Milly Maker. So we're pumped. We expect nothing less. And if you listen to Shane, which we all had to listen to Shane, celebrating, but he flat out said he was working yesterday and on his lunch break. And we talk about this all the time. The process is so key. And here's, just living proof. At lunchtime, he jammed in to listen to our NBA podcast. And so I think he really should split the money three ways with us.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah,
I mean, to be fair.
Shoot him a note on that one. But He listened to the podcast, and then later in the day when he was done, he jumped in Discord with us to make sure the lineups were good. Asked a few questions, and just like the pro that he is, I mean, that's how you do it. You have to be humble, work as a team, and that's how you take down the big stuff. So yeah. I'm so fired up, and now we get to go.
It was perfect. I just want to add the one thing of how he built the lineup after listening to the podcast, and then as you talk about the process, he was following the news. We were looking at, is Zion going to play? Is Beverly going to play? Will that impact Reggie Jackson? And so that was the one thing he was chatting with us about right before lock is, should he pivot off of Reggie Jackson? Decided to keep him in there, and that was the key. That was the winning move for him.
Yeah, he was an eyelash away from taking Jackson out, and both of us said stick with him because even if Beverly plays, he's still going to get a good chunk of time. So thank goodness he stuck with that one, because with that tight of a battle last night, one single guy, you could go from first to out of the money. So yeah, it's crazy stuff, but that's what we're here for, man. And I'll tell you something else, just one last premise, and we're going to dive into this 6-game NBA slate today, because there's some other humongous contests out there today. Last night, I had the privilege of going on a podcast from Australia called Draft Studs. We'll be posting that on our website and on online as well, and just had a great time. So I want to give a quick shout out to the Draft Studs guys, and my buddy Lewis Glover over there, and it was great for us. We're sort of like brethren now. We're rooting for Draft Studs to crush it over in Australia, and same for us here in the U.S. So yeah, listen in if you have a chance. It's a lot of fun. Good discussion about DFS, where the industry's going, all of that kind of stuff. So
excellent.
Big shout out. All right, man. Before we get rolling in this, a quick shout out to our providing sponsors. That's mybookie.ag. It is the place to go for all your sports wagering and casino action. Go to mybookie.ag and use the promo code CoachTalk, all one word, no space, and you receive 50% of your sign-up bonus all the way up to $1,000 and a free $25 free play just for being a listener to Coach Talk. And also our good friends at tvg.com. It's where the entire world goes to watch and wager on horse racing. Go to tvg.com or tune in to TVG on your cable networks. $300 risk-free bet from TVG if you use the promo code Coach Talk. You can get to it by going to our DFSCoachTalk.com website, click on the banner that says risk-free TVG $300 bet, and you're in, my friend. Okay, 6 games. We are really fired up. For me, as you know, for our listeners that have been out there for a while, and I know Andrew knows, I am one of those guys that the more games, the better. I love when there's 6 or 7 games. That's a lot of people's sweet spot. I don't really care that much when it's 1, 2 games. Even when it's greater amount of games, like 13, 14, 15, whatever it is in the sport, like baseball has a bunch of them tonight. That's where I like the edge. I think some people get lost a little bit in building lineups that way, and optimizers get a little squished with players to where, you know, it's a little bit harder to roster everybody you want. So I'm loving this. This is my first feel of a real NBA slate. And the amazing thing is it starts at 2:30 Eastern and will be on for about 9 straight hours because there's games throughout the day and night. So it's almost like the NCAA basketball tournament for like 3 months worth of basketball. I don't know, man. I'm on such a high. I feel like, I drank 100 pitchers of Kool-Aid or something. I got all the juices flowing here. I'm like ready to roll. But that's an old reference, though. Remember the old Kool-Aid days? You go to the store, 10 cents a packet, and you just dump the sugar in there.
Magical sugar.
And you bounce off the walls for.
Right.
I mean, that's the way to do it. If you have kids now, try that. I dare you. You do. Your little ones.
Yeah.
You got to get them a little old-fashioned Kool-Aid.
Yeah.
All right. Speaking of drinking the Kool-Aid, how about that transition into the DFS Coach Talk Kool-Aid? So we're going to do a couple of things. We're going to follow this format throughout. And the reason we're going to do injuries and player news first is because there's just so much of it. And we don't, slows down the whole process of going through the game. So generally what we'll do, a little small talk early on, if you're looking to know what the, agenda is for these shows each day. We're going to go through that player news, and that's up to the minute player news. And we'll put that all out there. And then we're going to go game by game, just like we do in every sport. I'll set the game, the odds, the whole 9 yards. We'll get all of Andrew's tremendous wisdom. I'll bounce a little back, and then we'll just go through the slate that way. So by the time we're done, you should have a decent core of guys to build out your DK or FanDuel lineups, and give you an idea of maybe where to go on some pivots and what stuff to follow up on. So here we go. Now I know this is comprehensive, and some people say, well, why spend 5 minutes doing this? Well, I'll tell you why, because this is absolutely critical. Any one of these 31 things could make a difference in your slate, and probably will. I'll go through them quickly, though. But you need to know this stuff, especially with this being the first game that all these teams are playing since the restart. It's all with the COVID-19 stuff and people not reporting to the bubble because of being sick or concerns. All of that is rolled up into this, but all of it has a massive effect on the slate and on your build. Okay, we begin with Bryn Forbes from San Antonio. He is out of Friday's game. We also know that LaMarcus Aldridge and Trey Lyles are out. So there's a whole different look to that San Antonio rotation and usage, which we will talk about later. Frank Mason III is probable for Milwaukee against Boston. You have Marvin Williams doubtful. He is there, but he has a left groin strain. Alex Len is out. He's back with the team after recovering from coronavirus, but he is not playing in today's action. We have Rodinas Kurucs is probable. He should be playing with just a hip contusion. They expect him to lace it up. Jamal Crawford, doubtful for Brooklyn. He was signed, but still is getting into condition. I'm not sure if he's going to lace him up. Obviously, the Nets, with just decimated more than any other team, I don't think they're expecting to get much more than a decent run for some of the young guys in this 8-game period. Then you got Damian Lillard, very, very important, full practice. He's ready to go, 100%, no issues whatsoever. So he is going to be in the lineup today. Two huge guys out for Milwaukee that changes the complex of that game. Pat Connaughton and Eric Bledsoe, neither one of them will play. They are both out for this game. Wes Iwundu for Orlando is 50-50 questionable. Don't play him. We know Eric Gordon hurt his ankle again. He's expected to be out for 8 to 10 days minimum. So that changes the rotation. House moves into the lineup for Houston. Austin Rivers is confirmed in. He's playing. Nazir Little for Portland. They've got 9 million big guys now, but he's also back. So, they've got Portland is loaded on the front line with all the players returning. They have literally 5 centers on their roster now. Aaron Baines recovered from COVID and is back, and he's playing tonight. De'Aaron Fox is back. Harrison Barnes, another person like me, recovered from COVID. He's back. Tremont Waters for Boston is confirmed in, with Kemba only playing 15 to 20 minutes max. Maybe Tremont gets a little run. Of course, Russell Westbrook is confirmed. That dude is just a monster. I think he's tougher than Corona, to be honest with you. Then you've got some other outs that are important. Marvin Bagley, he is not going to play in any of the games for Sacramento. He has a strained right foot, and they're not going to risk it. Horrible news on Justice Winslow. What a bummer, man. This dude was just back after missing most of the year and was going to be a prominent part of that Memphis run they were going to make the playoffs, and he had a pretty serious hip injury in an inter-squad game there in the bubble, and he's out for not only this, but probably the beginning of next season. So very unfortunate for him. He has a lot of promise. Thomas Bryant is back. He's a coronavirus survivor as well. He's ready to play tonight. No Trey Lyles, as I mentioned. Jabari Parker and Buddy Hill, survivors of corona, they are back and suited up and ready to play. Here's some guys that are out. Poor Brooklyn. Taurean Prince, Spencer Dinwiddie. We know both of those guys are out. Bradley Beal is not in the bubble. He will not play at all during this deal. He's been nursing a shoulder. Washington knows they have almost no chance, so they're going to rest Beal up for next season. Guys that we do have confirmed that are going to make an impact: Brandon Clark from Memphis, Jaren Jackson also from Memphis, Jakob Poeltl for the Spurs is in. A couple more guys out, non-sequential: Caleb Swanigan from Portland, Thabo Sefolosha for Houston. And then the amazing news for Portland, not only do they have Whiteside and Little, now they have Zach Collins and Yusuf Nurkic. All 4 guys are back, and they're all ready to go and 100%. They're saying, Collins and Nurkic look great in the scrimmages and practice. So they're going to be loaded on the front line. No DeAndre Jordan. He has coronavirus, so you get a little bit more run, you would think, from our man from Texas. Who's big? What's the Afro guy?
Jared Allen.
Jared Allen escaped my mind. And then you've got Wilson Chandler for Brooklyn out, like all the guys. Willie Cauley-Stein is not reported to the bubble, will not play for Dallas. Nick Claxton for Brooklyn could have used these minutes as a young guy, but he's out. Trevor Ariza is out. Courtney Lee for Dallas. We know Davis Bertans not there for Washington. Kelly Oubre Jr. for Phoenix. LaMarcus Aldridge, as we mentioned, for San Antonio. And, of course, Mr. Kevin Durant. So, again, a massive amount of guys. But what I've been doing for the last probably 2.5 weeks is working this list, because all of these guys that were mentioned, and there's some others additionally, all completely impact defensive ratings of teams, offensive usage of teams, rotations of teams. And if you want an edge and you want to win in this sucker, I'm saying do it in this next week, and do it with us at DFS Coach Talk, because we're ready for this now. We don't have to do like most people, watch 3 or 4 games to figure out who's doing what for each team. We are ready to rock and roll. So go to dfscoachtalk.com, sign up as a member for a week, month, or year, and you have full access to our Discord, full FanDuel lineups. Really popular new thing we're doing with DraftKings is creating what we're calling the Coach's Clipboard, where we are putting a pool of players and highlighting a core that you can choose out of that. So staying by all of DraftKings guidelines, we follow the rules here at Coach Talk, and yet doing the best we can for our members to help them win. And we did have some people definitely get it done last night as well. So that is it, my friend. I know it was lengthy, but necessary, I believe, in making this work. Okay, are you ready for game 1, sir?
Let's do it.
The first game, it's that 2:30 Eastern game that comes up this afternoon. It is the Orlando Magic, who, by the way, we've got to talk about records, although it feels like everybody's 0-0 because it's been 4 months, but they are 30-35. Nets are 30-34. But we've got some crazy stuff here with the Nets lineup. That's for darn sure. I'm also going to give you the mybookie.ag line on the game, and you've got Orlando Magic -7. I think Brooklyn will be a pretty heavy dog in all 8 games, and the over/under in that game is 211. So when we're talking about these teams and factoring in the different rotations, offense, defense, that's also going to provide you a good edge on not just the line, but on how many points we're expecting. We talked about it in depth yesterday. We expected a decent amount more points in the first game than we did the second game, and it did play out that way. Same type of scenario. All right, man. So I've got, probable lineups. We know all the news. Give us some info that will help us build tonight's Milly Maker in this first game, Orlando and Brooklyn.
All right. Well, starting with Orlando, Coach Clifford mentioned that he plans to use a balanced minutes approach here. Guys just not in top shape. So I'm going to fade Orlando mostly. And then look at Brooklyn. And it's funny, when you look at Brooklyn's projected lineup after all those injuries you talked about, it's basically like almost a below average backup unit. If you really break it down, other than LeVert, I mean, that guy's got, massive skills and upside. He's going to be highly owned. I cringed a little bit when I saw his price on DraftKings at $7,800. He is going to soak up all the usage with Dinwiddie and Kyrie out. So I will have him in a bunch of lineups, but I'm also going to build a couple lineups without him just because of that price tag and because he's going to be so highly owned. But I'm actually going to look at a couple of these bigs for Brooklyn in a big percentage of my lineups. You mentioned Jarrett Allen. He's been getting big minutes with Jordan out, 30 minutes in one of these games with a 19 and 10. So I'll have him. And then Kurucs, he's been putting up some big numbers in these games, even coming off the bench, and he may start today. At 3,300 as a power forward, I really like that value, so I'll have some exposure to him.
I love it, man. I absolutely love it. Probable lineups right now, just to give a quick glance at it, it looks as though Orlando's got their regular group. Jonathan Isaac is back, so they wouldn't have had him for that late run if the season would have continued as is. So it's their normal 5: Fultz, Fournier, Isaac, Gordon, and Vukovic. That's pretty stout, and their bench, isn't bad either. So I think this could be a blowout. I really think Orlando's the better team for sure. I have 2 concerns with rostering Orlando guys. One, that they do share the ball quite a bit when they're all playing. And secondly, I see this maybe a 15, 20-point win for Orlando. So from the betting side, with that mybookie.ag line -7, I'm going to be all over that. But, certainly I would never fault you if you did want to put an Isaac, a Gordon, or a Vuk in there. I would steer a little cautious from Isaac. I can't imagine they're going to throw him out there 35 minutes after not playing for so long. So, but I'm with you on Brooklyn. I think, what did I tell you about 2.5 weeks ago?
You said you were going to play LeVert in at least 7 of the 8 slates when he plays.
I did, and he's the first guy in my lineup today. I don't care what chalk he is. I don't care what price he is. He could be 10 grand. He's in my lineup. I'm just saying, he's a free square. The biggest takeaway I think you can get from this pod today is play Karis LeVert. They don't have anybody else to go to. Even in these scrimmage games, they gave him the ball with about 15 seconds on the shot clock and basically either set a screen for him or cleared out and let him take him one-on-one. And he took the shot almost every time. So, maybe Orlando runs a double at him. That's what I would do if I was coaching, because I would try to take him away. He's really the only guy on the team that can flat out beat you. Right now they have Chiozza as the starting point guard listed, and Karis LeVert, Joe Harris, possibly Kurucs if he's healthy, and Jared Allen. So I'll tell you, man, it's hard not to want to roster these Brooklyn guys, but, the concern is, do they get shellacked and just play everybody that's on their bench? Because they have basically their entire G League team on this team. I'm with you. LeVert, Jared Allen, I think, are my 2 guys that I'm going to go to. I think they'll play enough to be effective. And it's just going to be so nice now to have an Allen out there. And I rostered him some before the shutdown without having to look over our shoulder for DeAndre Jordan coming in the game. And so, I think that both of those guys are strong plays. Eat the chalk, take the free square, play Karis LeVert. He's just so solid, so solid. All right, game 2, if you're ready.
Let's do it.
Memphis Grizzlies 32-33, and the Portland Trailblazers 29-37. They've got a little bit of work to do. The mybookie.ag line is Portland a slim -3, and the over-under is 224. So that is what you would call the second biggest over-under of the day, and we're expecting some points in this game. So where are all of those fantasy points going to, Mr. Hansen?
Well, I hope a significant portion go to Mr. John Morant, likely Rookie of the Year, $7K, nice price tag on DraftKings. With Tyus Jones out, you could also look at a guy like Melton at $4,700. And then with the bigs, Triple J is a guy that I don't play much, but he just fouled out in 20 minutes. So maybe he's got that out of his system. You're shaking your head.
I love him too, but how many times has he fouled out?
That's the thing. I'm thinking he got, he's had his foul out for the week.
No, he fouls out multiple times a week. That's the problem. If, he started showing just a glimmer of hope of being able to play without fouling, and then even in these scrimmage games, just, he's out of there.
Yeah.
So I don't know, man.
There's something about the price tag today, $4,900 on DraftKings.
That is cheap.
It's just jumping out at me. It's the old sales tactic of $9.99 instead of $10. It's under $5K for some reason. I just have a feeling about him. Again, I don't like to play him, but I may have some of him tonight. And then you could look as an alternative if you're going to use him. Put one lineup in there with Brandon Clark. He's cheaper off the bench, $4,100. He oftentimes outplays Triple J, so you could look there. And then on the Portland side, I think I'll probably look for some value here. Possibly Gary Trent Jr. at $3,500 if you need that cheaper small forward or shooting guard. And with the bigs, I'm a little bit concerned about Nurkic and Whiteside. What's going to happen with them? I'd rather go cheaper here if you were going to use a big, maybe Zach Collins, minimum price. Um, so I guess, John Morant here, number one for me, and, maybe another one-off.
John Morant is your version of KBO Doosan Bears. That's
borderline. He doesn't quite have the Doosan Bears status, but he's up there.
He's getting there, man. This is a tough one. I'm not sure what to expect here. I know that the backcourt of Portland, as awesome as Lillard and McCollum play offensively, they're not stoppers on the defensive side. The guy that I sort of like is Dylan Brooks. He's cheap, and the dude just does everything, and he takes big shots. He was one of the big surprises for me this season, and I rostered him quite a bit, and I like him here as well against this backcourt. I don't have the courage with Triple J as much as he can knock down threes and finish with dunks and do everything. A guy that's in foul trouble all the time like that just drives me nuts. Joe Val, I like to play a lot, but he's going against this monster stacked, fresh Portland center group, and I think that could give him a little bit of trouble. So, I'm going to consider Ja. He's a little pricey, and certainly consider Brooks. And then on the Portland side, I still think you have to look at Dame. I mean, Portland needs to win all 8 of these games and try to get into the playoffs. Dame is the go-to guy, forever be known for the waving goodbye to the Thunder and the big smile. We've used that one with all of our faces on there at one point or another. But, I think Dame's a great play here. Brooks may try to guard him a little bit, and he's a good defender. But I think Ja's probably going to start on him because the reason I'm going to fade CJ is I think Brooks will start on CJ, and they'll try to at least not have the 1-2 punch knock him out. But as they rotate, you're going to get a little bit different look there. And then I'm just I'm not comfortable going with the plethora of forwards and centers because of the depth, and I think they're going to all split minutes. And so, therefore, I doubt I'm going to go there. But based on everything I've read, I think he's hot in the industry as well. Zach Collins could be a really sneaky, solid play. And I do think that he can also get Triple J in foul trouble. So just something to keep in mind on that front.
Excellent.
All right, Game 3. It's a 4 p.m. start also. So there's 2 games at 4 p.m. So we'll have to be able to flip back and forth and not have to watch those commercials. I'll tell you, those State Farm commercials that were on last night, they have got to stop those commercials. I mean, it makes you want to walk out and protest. Between him the State Farm jumping out the window and throwing the ball to knock the flowers. I mean, come on, State Farm. What the hell are you doing? All right. Just because of that, I would not get the insurance from them. I'm just saying. All right. Phoenix 26-39 at Washington 24-40. How are they in the bubble? 24-40 Washington. All right, you've got mybookie.ag. 7-point Phoenix Suns favorite, and it is a 223 over/under, so it's a pretty fat number too. As well, they're the 3rd highest, so. There are some guys here I think that are great plays. I'm dying to see what you like in this game, Andrew.
Well, Mikal Bridges, I mean, he's really taking advantage of no Oubre here.
Yeah.
He had a game on Tuesday, 26 points, 3 rebounds, 3 assists, 2 steals, and a block. I mean, just filling up the stat sheet at 5,600, nice mid-tier option. Cameron Johnson has stepped up at 4,300. We'll see if Saric is out. We'll see what's going on with the forwards and centers. That's going to be one of the more important situations right before lock with Saric and Baines potentially opening up value for guys like Kaminsky. But for me, it's Bridges. He's going to be a core play for me, possibly Cameron Johnson. And then on the Washington side, real opportunity here with Beal and Wall and Bertans out. Napier looks good to me so far. He looks pretty comfortable getting the extra minutes, a little bit pricey. Troy Brown Jr. at 4,700. This could be a situation where we roster him. And Bonga, how about Bonga at 3,300? He had a 15 and 12 game recently. Both of those guys, Brown and Bonga, I don't like playing, but I don't know if I can resist getting some exposure to them. Can you talk me out of them, or do you agree it might be worth taking a shot on one of those guys?
Well, I normally don't do this, but I have to here because it's just too big of a deal for me. I am going to release two players from the Wizards that are going to be in 100% of my cash and GPP lineups that are actually my favorite two plays on the entire slate. But I'm not gonna divulge that here in the podcast. Okay. I want this to be special to our members, and this isn't a sales thing trying to get people to join. It's just respecting the members that are in there, and I want to be true to those guys. So if you do want that information, and again, this isn't a forced sales ploy of any kind, jump in our Discord and you'll get my top two NBA plays of this slate, both from the Washington Wizards, and I love this game as well. I think you can look at Booker here if you want to spend up. Mikal Bridges is cheap enough that I think his usage is going to be up there. I'm not going to mess with the bigs, the Saric, Ayton, Baines type scenario, with Baines being ruled in without a whole lot of limits. And I don't know if you remember, but the old coach, I may be slipping in some areas, but I don't forget anything I see in basketball. This was right before we started KBO, maybe 6 weeks into the pandemic.
I don't remember that world. All I know is KBO.
Exactly. And I sat there an entire 2 evenings and painfully watched the NBA 2K tournament that was on TV.
Yeah.
And I vividly remember DeAndre Ayton playing Zach LaVine in 2K on TV. You remember this, right?
Yep.
And Zach LaVine had asked Ayton how, what he was doing during the shutdown. And he said nothing, man. Was playing some 2K and hanging out, lifting a few weights. And I thought to myself right there, this guy's not committed to the game.
Yeah.
And I'm going to remember this months later, and I'm going to do a wait and see on Ayton all the way around. And I was an Ayton backer, so he is off my list for right now. And Zach LaVine, by the way, something to remember later, said that he had a gym attached to his apartment. He was getting his full workout in, cardio and weights and shots up. So I know it sounds silly, fellas, but listen, those pieces of information are critical. So for me on the Phoenix side, I'm going to look at Booker, definitely look at Bridges, and then the coaches' takedown plays on the Wizards side will be shared in our Discord 30 minutes before lock.
Yeah, Coach, one more thing on that is, you remember hearing how Giannis was claiming that he wasn't working out, wasn't shooting, but it was just a ploy to mess with his competitors' heads.
Yes.
And in fact, he was working on his game. So the funny thing is with Ayton, I don't think that was any sort of a ploy, right? No. That was just, you can just take him for his word. He was not doing cardio. A little bit different situation than Giannis.
Oh, completely. I mean, he was caught off the cuff with that question from LaVine, and you could tell he was almost embarrassed of the way he was acting when he said it. And I thought, oh man, if the Phoenix front office is watching this, they are going to be sending some equipment over there and getting on his butt.
Yeah.
So pretty darn funny. All right, game number 4. Boston Celtics with a limited Kemba Walker. If you didn't read that, 15-20 absolute max for Kemba. So you got Boston at 43-21 against, there you go, the Milwaukee Bucks, 53-12. This should be the feature game of the day. And this, mybookie.ag line, Milwaukee minus 4.5 with just a 219 over under. So one of the 3 or 4 lowest. So big game here. Strong players on both sides. Limited Kemba. How do you see this playing out?
Well, I'm going to steer away from most of the Celtics here with their, upper mid-tier pricing. Kemba on short minutes. None of the Celtics have done very well against Milwaukee this year. Tatum has only averaged 34 DK points against them, even though Jaylen Brown didn't play in either of those matchups.
Right.
Marcus Smart's probably done the best. He's averaged 38 DraftKings points against Milwaukee, but he's at 6,400 on DraftKings. It's a little bit pricey for him. The only guy I'm looking at is Enes Kanter, actually, as a
Wow.
He's minimum price. I just don't think that's right. If he gets 18, 20 minutes at 3,000, I think he can really pay off value. Don't think he'll be that highly owned. So you could use him as a value play. The real challenge, though, is, he's only center eligible. We already mentioned Jared Allen. I've got another center coming up that I like. So that's the challenge on DraftKings. On the Milwaukee side, Giannis is certainly in play, one of the key studs.
Why would you want to include him in your pool?
I know it. Yeah, I mean, he doesn't take the game seriously.
Just average.
Yeah, just an average guy all around. Dante DiVincenzo at 4,900. He is obviously going to take advantage of the absence of Bledsoe and Connaughton. I'll have some exposure to him. Those are my two favorite Milwaukee players this evening.
Yeah, I'm with you on Boston. I think you've got some situations there where I looked at the same, stats as you did, and Tatum just did okay against Milwaukee, and that was out without having to share usage with Jaylen Brown. But to even that out, those guys both do get a bump with Walker not playing as much. And I know I had Marcus Smart in a game against Milwaukee early in the year, and he just tore it up. But he tore it up against Bledsoe that whole game, and Bledsoe's not playing. So, that changes the aspect of all of those things. That's why I said it's just such a domino effect. I think you're going to see a lot of people wanting to watch this game, and Milwaukee being the featured team with Boston. I think DiVincenzo is going to be very highly owned because everybody's going to look at him as sort of a sneak play, but they don't realize he's going to be chalk, in my opinion, or close to it. So I'm not going to go there just as a differentiator, just to be a little contrarian. I mean, I think he'll do fine. I don't think he's going to tear it up. Boston plays decent team defense as well. Yep. The question for me here is, I know Middleton came in, people were saying he didn't work out, he wasn't in shape, and this and that, but I watched him play. He doesn't look like he gained a pound. He was moving fine. So, I think Middleton's playable. With Bledsoe out and then no Connaughton coming off the bench, somebody's going to have to pick up that slack. And Giannis is going to get his either way. So for me, I think some of that slack is going to be picked up by Middleton. So I know it's not a hot take and it's not the newswire stuff, and it doesn't help your build salary-wise, but you absolutely have to consider Giannis and Middleton or one or the other, depending on your build. I think those are the two top players for Milwaukee here. I think they get enough run and bump with some of the guys out for Milwaukee to both be in play. And I'll tell you, I faded Giannis most of the year, as awesome as he is, and setting records of points per minute, because of just, the rest time, and they really babied him. But here's the key factor here. That babying time is over. He's in perfect shape. They have 8 games to prepare for the playoff run. So I've stated this on the preview show yesterday. I don't believe the good coaches, and Milwaukee's got one of the best, I do not believe that the coaches are going to play these games in a soft manner and low minutes. It's not time to do load management. You saw Kawhi got a long run yesterday. Yep. I think you're going to see the same thing with Giannis. So if Giannis was producing those ludicrous almost 2 fantasy points a minute in some of those games and is going to get more of an extended run, which I think he will because they want to get some continuity going into the playoffs, he's going to almost be to the point of unfadable at times. So, he's very high at the top of my list. I've got some good value guys that I've mentioned already, and then some Washington value as well. So, I could be a very strong Giannis play here, and I'm still toying with Middleton because I think he's going to go lower owned.
Yeah, Giannis is averaging 60 fantasy points against Boston this season, so solid, strong
And
choice for
that's
sure.
probably down to from his average, literally. I mean, I think he's averaging low 60s. I mean, he's right in there with Harden trying to take the championship, but he's done it in tons of less minutes. Remember that, way less minutes. All right, we go to game 5. The Sacramento Kings, 28-36 against the San Antonio Spurs, 27-36. So it's an important game for these two teams. This is an 8 Eastern game, by the way. MyBookie.ag has this game up to the minute. We're just doing a quick refresh. It has the Kings as a 3-point favorite over Pop and the Spurs, and it's a 221 over-under. So very interesting game here. What do you think here?
Well, one of the other centers in play for me is Richaun Holmes at 5,100. He scored 49 and a half fantasy points against San Antonio. You mentioned Aldridge out, Lyles out. Pirtle is strong defensively, but I like Holmes here because of the injuries and absences on the Sacramento side with Bagley and Alex Len out. We know that's been a very crowded front court, but a little bit more clarity here for Holmes. So I like him. And then Bogdanovich and Hield, both in that around the 5K range on DraftKings. I think they're both solid options. Bogdanovich didn't play well against San Antonio during the first part of the regular season, but he's been playing well in the scrimmages. And Hield, he was excellent against San Antonio, averaging 44 DraftKings points. So I like all three of those guys for good prices against this San Antonio team that's 26th in defense on the season. On the Spurs side, interesting lineup here with potentially Murray and White, to go along with DeMar DeRozan. So the ball handling is really going to be spread out here. DeRozan was handling a lot during the regular season, but with those guys in the starting lineup, he probably won't handle it as much. I don't plan to use him because his price has gone up. One value play for the Spurs, one of the guys that's standing out here in the scrimmages is Keldon Johnson. He's minimum price. And Popovich, who's not really big on praising anybody, gave him some really strong words of encouragement here in the last week or so. So there's a guy that is going to get a look. So you could look there because it looks like Bryn Forbes is going to be out. So he should get an opportunity. So I'll have a little bit of exposure to this game in that 5K range.
Yeah, this game has a lot of intrigue to me. I think it can really help make you or break you, really. One thing I want to read on Hield and Jabari Parker, because it's connected here, and this is a quote right directly from the coach. Hield and Jabari Parker have been cleared from coronavirus, but have only played a 2-on-2 scrimmage. And Coach Walton said Hield and Parker participated in 75% of this last practice. And, so that all of that stuff tells me that I think they'll be limited a little bit. I don't see full out games from these two guys. So that steers me, a little clear from them. I'd like to look at De'Aaron Fox here. I think that, with him being ready to go and deeming himself 100% healthy, I think he's a really solid play. I'm with you. I think it's a great take on Richaun Holmes. This could be a monster game for him at a cheap price. I think he's a fantastic play. On the Spurs side, I think you're going to see a lot of usage flow towards DeMar DeRozan with LaMarcus being out. I like DeJounte Murray, without him having to split the game with White and both of them getting minutes, I think plays in his advantage. And, I think what Pop wants to get out of this, because they're very slim chance to make it as well, is I think he wants to see Lonnie Walker step into that starters type role where he's a major contributor on any given night. So this knowing him and his thought process, if he can take that out of here of letting Murray, White, and Walker run a lot together, that's his young front court, super young, and with tremendous ability. So I'm not as high on White, but I think Murray and Walker are 100% in play, and banking off of Fox and Holmes from the other side.
Yeah, one more thing on Hield. I'm not sure when that quote was from that you saw, but he did play on Monday. He played 27 minutes.
Okay.
Came off the bench. Of course, Bogdanovich has been starting here recently and had 17 points, 8 rebounds, 4 assists. So unless there's something that's changed here midweek, that's why he's in the pool for me.
Yeah, this was Wednesday at 3:02 p.m.
Okay.
So, yeah, I mean, that's no idea. That's what it is, and it's a quote from Walton. So, again, take that for what it's worth. Buddy can make 7 threes in a row. Who knows? But if he's only playing, for me, if he's only playing 25 minutes, I'm not going to quite go there. He's not the cheapest guy on the board either. But good point. Either way, something to keep an eye on and a good thing to follow on Twitter. We'll put some updated notes on him. All right, the last game, it is, I guess, the late night sweat. We haven't been able to say that in a long time.
Yeah.
It's 9 p.m. Eastern, and it's Houston Rockets against a team, I believe they're called the Dallas Mavericks.
You know a thing or two about them?
I think they have this European fella. I think his name's Luka. Is that right?
I think he's all right. He's sort of like that Giannis guy.
Yeah, exactly. So this is a great game. You got 2 teams with both 40 wins. Houston's 40-24, however. Mavericks are 40-27. So Houston is up in the loss column there. But this should be phenomenal. I mean, you got most of your big dogs going here with Westbrook and Harden, Luka and Porzingis. All the big dogs from both teams are pretty much in there. We know Eric Gordon's inactive with that ankle. So this is going to be a fun game. MyBookie.ag has this game as the Dallas Mavericks, a 2-point favorite. That's a surprise. I expected Houston to be a 2-point favorite or so. And here you go. You got the Fat City. Not only is it the late night sweat game, but nobody can accuse me of loading up in this game with the Mavericks because it's a 230 over-under, and these teams can score it from outside especially. You're going to see some threes flying. So before I give my slanted view of how the Mavericks are going to play in this game, why don't you give us a nice look and breakdown of Rockets Mavs?
Yeah, I'm excited about this game. They've really had some explosions in from the fantasy point of view in their matchups. Harden had 68 fantasy points against Dallas, or he averaged that, and Luka had a 71 game against Houston, 41, 6, and 10. But I want to start with Harden because he's one of these guys that he's been playing big minutes. We know D'Antoni will do that, whether it's preseason or scrimmages before the restart. Yeah. And I really liked one of his quotes here because they're talking about playing Harden off the ball a little bit more from time to time. And he said, I guarantee you one thing, whether he's on, off, middle, on the bench, he's going to score a lot of points. That's the thing with D'Antoni and Harden. He loves to get him out there. He encourages him to do his thing and rack up the points. And that's what he's been doing even in these restarts in big minutes. So I really like Harden, even at 11K. I'm willing to pay out for him. And then with Eric Gordon out, that changes things a little bit. He's saying that House is going to be starting tonight, who averages 25 fantasy points against Dallas this year. He's only 3,800, so there's a value play you could use in this game to get more exposure to it. And on the flip side, I'll have some Luka for sure. And I want to ask you about the guard rotation. We talk about this a lot. We try to get your Dallas Mavericks insight. I know you've watched every minute of their scrimmages. You probably have watched every minute of the pregame and postgame coverage too.
I have, because we're getting local stuff. With Skin and Followell, all the local guys are doing their thing, so I'm all over.
And you make us schedule our podcast around the Dallas Mavericks scrimmages, so they kind of run the show here at DFS Coach Talk. So I want to ask you about these backup guards. JJ Barea Trey Burke. JJ Barea has had a 14-6-6 game and a 14-2-3 game in these scrimmages. He's only 3,300. What are your thoughts on him?
I'll tell you what, with Jalen Brunson going down with the season-ending injury, JJ is now in that role of backup point guard for Luka, and the guy is just insane. I mean, you watched him this last game in the fourth quarter. He single-handedly, this is when both teams went to the bench, he scored 11 straight, including taking it right at the big man for a reverse layup in the game. He just blows me away that he's been in the league this long and is still so effective. Here's the thing, though. This type of game where it's going to be tight, I think that he will get minutes. I'm not a plug and play for him at this point, though. I think it's just a little risky. The time to play him is if Luka sits out a game, then he's just 100% automatic. Okay. But I just don't know he'll get enough opportunities in the limited minutes that he'll get, even at 15 to 20 minutes. I mean, if you can accept at that low price getting 15 fantasy points from him or 16, then I'd say, put him up there. I just don't know on this type of a slate in these contests that you really need to go there when there are guys that are starting that are going to play 30-some minutes that are low-priced as well.
Okay. Well, I directed your Mavericks commentary there. Please open it up and give us the rest of your insight on Dallas.
Well, this is going to stun you, and I try to surprise you every podcast, but I have not made a decision on this game whatsoever, and I'm going to explain myself. It has nothing to do with memberships or anything like that. There are two elements of this game, to me, that are going to shape the way this entire game plays out. So I am going to spend, it is now early morning. This game doesn't play till 9, but we obviously have to have it in lock. We do get late swap, so I may use a few spots in this game to protect for late swap. And then, may have to use them at this 8 o'clock game, Sacramento, San Antonio. So I say all that to tell you that this is a strategical thing. This is the way it is sometimes. It's not black and white in DFS. And in the NBA, you have to look for a couple things. Here are the two elements you need to follow today to determine how this game's going to play out. Number one is in the last matchup, Dallas in the first half, and a part of the second half, used a strategy that teams started to do against Westbrook, the smart coach teams, Miami, San Antonio, Dallas. And what they did was
Golden State too.
And Golden State, they ran a fast, quick double the second that Harden came across the court. And what he did was instantaneously didn't try to force anything. Even before the double quite got to him, he kicked it to Westbrook. Westbrook then goes 4-on-3. So if they're going to do that, you can't play Harden. Westbrook becomes a must. So that's what I'm trying to find out. And I may not be able to find that out, but I'm going to do my best to see if that strategical piece is part of it. So that's number one. And that's, the biggest key. The second thing is, in the games they've played, there hasn't been consistency with who's guarded Luka. Westbrook's guarded him, Harden's guarded him, and that is huge as well. Westbrook has played terrific defense this season. He made it one of his challenges. He's been in the top 7 defensive real plus minus for point guards throughout the year for a guy that was maligned for his defensive prowess in the past. So if he's going to try to lock down Luka, and then they're going to put Harden on Curry, who's shooting the ball better than he has in his career, then Curry becomes a must-play. If they flip it the other way, and they know that, and they want to get Westbrook up in Curry's face, because if you make Curry drive and take away his 3, he becomes way less effective. So if that's the case, then Luka's plug and play, even over Giannis for me, because Harden's going to be guarding him. So again, I'm not answering any questions in this game, and I apologize for that, but it's because I don't want to give you misinformation. So I'm going to dig in, find out if I can get some pregame, not just strategy, but even player matchups to see how this is going to fly. And then I'll allow, based on what I just explained, allow that to play into my lineup. But I can tell you that one way or the other, it's got to happen, one of the combinations. A couple of these higher price guys will certainly round out my roster. And not because, again, I'm a Mavs fan, or not because it's a late night sweat. Never, I tell everybody this all the time. I don't care if it's a game, the only game you get, the only game you're going to watch, or if there's 19 games at the same time, and you can't let any of that bother you. You need to know the lock time. Don't pay attention to who's on TV or who's not, or all of that baloney, because you can't let that sway. You got to take the guys that are the guys to take if you really want to win and be good at this. So none of that comes into play here. What does come into play is depending on that strategy, are going to be some absolutely lock washer plays from this game based on those matchups and strategy. And it's very highly the highest scoring game regarding Vegas's odds. So I think you got to keep this game as a key, keep some serious stash salary money. And again, if it's late swap and you put in Harden and Curry, and you end up switching to Westbrook and Luka or whatever, obviously Curry's way cheaper than those three guys, so you got to balance that out in your lineup. But it gives you some options with late swap. So keep all of that in mind, use that in your strategy, and I think it can really help you take down some big stuff. I'm going to play a little more GPPs than I normally play tonight, Andrew, so I'm in your lane a little bit because I really like the makeup of being able to play 3 or 4 super value guys that I think are going to have 30, 35-minute major roles with their teams, and it gives me that path to the Giannis's and Lukas and Hardens. Not all of them, but you're going to get, a piece of 2 of them probably. So that's where I'm at, man.
I agree. I'm excited about some of these value plays, and I like that you reminded us about doubling Harden. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to adjust my exposure to Harden a little bit and make sure I increase my exposure to Westbrook just in case that plays out like you mentioned, because Rick Carlisle's a smart fella, and if he's sitting there looking at these bulletin board quotes from D'Antoni, he might be motivated to try to shut Harden down and say, well, he's not going to score 35 against us, we're going to double him and see what we can do against Westbrook. So I think that is wise to be prepared to get more exposure to Westbrook, because the thing is, in these scrimmages, Harden's been aggressive in scoring. Westbrook hasn't been as aggressive, shooting as much. But maybe that'll switch tonight against Dallas if they force Harden to give up the ball.
And let me tell you this. I have not read one thing or heard one quote saying that Carlisle's going to pull this double team at half court deal again. I am just going on past games. And here's the thing. The only time they got burned in that whole scenario, and this is why I would do it 100%, is where they got burned was Westbrook then being able to go 4-on-3 and throw a lob to Capella,
right,
who they couldn't defend. Guess what? That lob is not going to go to PJ Tucker. He's about my height, and he's their center.
How about Covington?
Yeah, I just, that hurts them. I mean, losing Capella in this type of scenario hurts them. And I think, if he doesn't do it, I think he's missing the opportunity because, again, you're not giving it up to a superstar guard in Westbrook and being able to lob it to an all-star center. He's got 3 other basically almost guards and small forwards out there. So they're still going to have to penetrate and, probably take a jumper or something. So I don't know. So, Rick, if you're listening, man, run out the double, brother. So we'll see how it plays out, but this is the kind of stuff, we love to just dig into the game behind the game, the strategies, what's going to happen, all that kind of stuff that you really can't find in an optimizer. Not that optimizers aren't, all that, because they're awesome, but let's look at these other scenarios and see how they're going to play out for a roster today. So I know we went a little longer today. We've already decided when we have these 6 and 7 game NBA slates, we're not going to be able to do that concise little 25, 30-minute deal because we want to share this stuff with you. And so, if you have the time to listen in or listen into pieces, we would, really welcome you to join in. We're doing this podcast 7 days a week. It'll be me and Shane, me and Andrew a lot of the time, but we also get Mr. Milly Maker takedown man, Sugar Shane.
That's right.
Will be jumping in there with me and then with Andrew for some of these shows. So now that everybody wants him and requesting him over you and I don't know if his head's going to fit in the screen. We may have to have him push the computer back a little bit.
Well, he deserves a bigger screen.
Fantastic, man. So anyway, YouTube, DFS Coach Talk. If you're watching this right now, please like, subscribe. Those are so important for us in moving up the rankings and really getting it out there. Instagram, DFS_Coach Talk, and Twitter at DFS Coach Talk. Part of that process, the process that we've used from the beginning, that Shane used yesterday for that FanDuel Milly Maker. Listen to the podcast. Listen to us throughout the day on Twitter. Our whole team is at DFS Coach Talk. I'm at Joe Sarvadi, JoeSarvadi. He is at Language Olympic. Mr. Milly Maker's at DET Sports Shane. And our buddy Freddie is at Freddie Mills 7. So check us out on there, dfscoachtalk.com. We've mentioned multiple times. We have some good content up there. If you're following some golf and different things, we have some fun content that Freddie posts up there. Our golf's off to a great start, by the way, just to throw that little thing in there. I was watching a little bit from the side here because we've got some good lineups going there. Fired up for Major League Baseball tonight, Andrew, too. We've got a monster slate, which I love monster slates. So I'm getting that ready as well. So, I mean, we went from COVID shutdown to 24/7 US DFS sports. I mean, this is like heaven. And we get phenomenal. The games on TV all day long, too. Can't
Paradise.
Paradise. Paradise, man. I want to thank our presenting sponsors, mybookie.ag. Definitely go there. Use the promo code just Coach Talk and get that bonus and free play. Go to tvg.com. Use the promo code Coach Talk as well for that risk-free $300 bet. We also want to give a quick shout out to our charity of choice here at DFS Coach Talk, and that is MambaOn3.org, MAMBAONTHREE.org. Awesome charity. That is it, my friend. I think we've got this one under our belts. Yesterday turned out to be pretty darn cool. Why not make it 2 days in a row?
Might as well. I mean, the prizes are there. Let's go out and grab them.
So, Shane, if you're listening, man, just, let Andrew and I get in.
Give
us
a turn, Shane, please. Can we have just one little turn? Just a little slice of a million? Just give us a turn.
Take it off. Take the day off in DFS. You already hit it.
Celebrate. Yeah. Take the day off.
Exactly. Well, listen, any final words, brother?
Yeah, no, thanks everybody for tuning in. Do hit that subscribe button so that you know when this podcast comes out, because with some of these early lock times, it's sort of a shifting schedule day by day. We are going to get it out to you several hours ahead, if not the night before or middle of the night. So set the alarm on YouTube so you get the notification and you have plenty of time to build your lineups before lock.
Absolutely. And again, some of these shows are going to be a little tighter. We're generally going to do this show the night before, and so it posts early in the morning. But we were all in such a frenzy over the Shane's run in the Milly Maker, trying to sweat that we decided to do it this morning. So I apologize, this isn't going to be up as early as we had originally stated, but it will be going forward. And you'll still today have at least a good 3 hours to listen to this and catch a piece of it. But remember, 2:30 start in the NBA Eastern, 7:05 in baseball, and golf is in the prime of it right now. They started early tee times because bad weather this afternoon. So catch all three of them. We got live action in all of them, and we'll catch you again. We'll be Again, putting that pot up very, very late tonight for tomorrow's action. And we're going to get into a groove here and just keep it going. So for everybody that tuned in, we appreciate it. For our whole team at DFS Coach Talk, and for Mr. Milly Maker, Shane Caldwell. For Andrew Hansen, I am Coach. We will look to catch you again tomorrow when we crush it in DFS.